The hard times are the ones that mold us. They're the ones that make us into who we truly are and who we're truly meant to be. They're the ones that realign us on the path that we're actually meant to walk on. They make us more resilient. They make us more confident, more brave. They teach us the most about ourselves. They, of course, feel the hardest in the moment, right? And oftentimes we're not going to see that growth and that transformation until way down the line, looking back in retrospect. But I personally have transformed the most in my life through all of the periods I look back on that I knew were the hardest, that were the most uncomfortable. Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the external pressures and expectations that the new year brings? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in your current situation or feeling anxiety about falling behind. The good news is you are not alone. So many others, myself included, are feeling the exact same way. The further good news is therapy can help. A therapist can help you distinguish external pressures from your own internal values. Develop a timeline that feels authentic to you rather than one imposed by society. Process any feelings of inadequacy or comparison and whatever else you might be feeling or experiencing. Whatever challenges this new year might bring up for you, BetterHelp, who is sponsoring today's episode, can help make it easier. BetterHelp is a therapy platform that is entirely online, making it both comfortable and convenient. Simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And don't worry, you can easily switch therapists at any time if it's not the right fit. Start fresh at any day of the year with BetterHelp by clicking the link in the show notes or go to betterhelp.com/unfulfilled to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hey everyone, welcome back to Unfulfilled. I'm your host, Camille. Thank you so much for tuning into today's solo episode. Before we dive in, if you're not already, please press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to the show. This will give you access to episodes every single week when they come out, so you'll never miss an episode. And it'll also mean so much to me in supporting the Unfulfilled community. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for taking the time to listen, for being a part of the community, and for showing up for yourself to make your life a little bit more fulfilling. So today we're going to talk about the hard times. So whether this be just having a bad day, maybe not the best week, or maybe you're having a really tough couple of months, maybe something happened and you're going through a really difficult year. Whatever it is, this is a perfect episode to save, to come back to give you this perspective and insight for when you're having these difficult moments, to recognize that it's here for a reason and it always passes. Or a perfect episode to send to someone who you know is going through a difficult time. Maybe they need that perspective and insight that this episode can provide. So send this to them right now to say I love you, to say I support you, and let's dive into the episode. So obviously we all want to feel happy all the time. We want to feel good all the time. It's way more fun when we feel good in life. But the reality is, A, we can't feel good and perfect all the time. We're human beings. And B, if we did feel perfect all the time and only had these positive emotions, we would miss out on all the necessary transformation, growth, and lessons that all of the harder times offer us. The hard times are the ones that mold us. They're the ones that make us into who we truly are and who we're truly meant to be. They're the ones that realign us on the path that we're actually meant to walk on. They make us more resilient. They make us more confident, more brave. They teach us the most about ourselves. They, of course, feel the hardest in the moment, right? And oftentimes we're not going to see that growth and that transformation until way down the line, looking back in retrospect. Of course, everything's easier in retrospect when you're not in the midst of the chaos and the overwhelming feelings. But I personally have transformed the most in my life through all of the periods I look back on that I knew were the hardest, that were the most uncomfortable, the most lonely, the most sad, the most anxiety ridden. Those were the times that I truly evolved into the person I am today. And that I'm continuing to evolve into, because it never stops. And another reason I wanted to do this episode is I used to be really bad at handling difficult emotions. I would kind of let them fully consume me and take me over to a point where I was reactive. I was not being my best self because of a difficult feeling I was experiencing. I would just get really consumed in those negative thoughts that were coming up in that narrative that I was telling myself in my head, and really just let it bring me down and just project it onto my whole life and forget that this is just a temporary thing that I'm feeling. I now have a lot more clarity and appreciation for these difficult times because I've learned time and time again that they always pass. And they're here for a reason. There is not one obstacle or difficult experience in life where we haven't become a slightly better version of ourselves or gained a newfound perspective or insight that we were meant to learn. So today I'm going to share with you a few of those experiences that I've personally gone through and why whatever it is that you're feeling and experiencing is here for a reason, and to offer you a perspective to make it feel a little less overwhelming, a little more meaningful, to give you just a little bit of light in whatever it is you're feeling. And to preface, I do want to be clear before diving in, I'm absolutely not saying that we should be feeling happy and positive and grateful through that hard time. Whatever difficult feeling, whatever feeling of sadness, anxiety, overwhelm, whatever that feeling is that's coming up is 100% valid. And we should 100% let ourselves feel that. But this episode is more about reminding us to zoom out, to recognize that it passes, that it's here for a bigger reason, to know that this happens to every single one of us. And as long as we continue to live, we're going to have difficult times and difficult emotions. So this is more of just a tool to zoom out and help manage them, to help make it a little less overwhelming for you. Not to say that we need to feel happy and grateful every single moment of life. The biggest reason that I think hard times truly transform us into a better version of ourselves is because when our lives feel like they've been entirely flipped upside down, when everything feels like it's falling apart, we are forced to slow down, tune inward, and really question our lives, question who we are, question the trajectory. We might be forced to rebuild from the ground up when everything is falling apart around us or when we're in turmoil internally. It forces us to come back to what truly matters to us, to what truly matters in this life. It forces us to question how we're living our lives. Do we want to be heading down this direction? Do I feel aligned with what I'm doing, with who I'm being? Often when really impactful things happen to us in life, or when we're shaken to a point where we're at a really low point, I find that it immediately allows us to start to let go of the insignificant things, those things that maybe we spent a lot of time and energy on that we suddenly realize that truly doesn't matter at all, or that is truly misaligned with who I am and what I want to do in this life. I've 100% found that through my own difficult times, that was when I got the courage to finally start living in alignment and to start expressing my authentic self. So first personal example here, starting the podcast. Of course, if you couldn't tell from the title, I started the podcast when I was at a bit of a low point. A month prior, had just ended a relationship that was emotionally really unsettling for me. It was a lot of highs and lows, and leaving that relationship, I was at a really low point. My confidence was really low. I was questioning who I am. I was questioning my path forward. I was lonely. I ultimately was going through a hard time. It was a transition phase. And the podcast and creating this community of Unfulfilled, although it didn't exist at the time, I knew it was something that I was passionate about, that I always wanted to do. But I kept kind of telling myself these excuses and coming up with reasons not to, like, oh, but what are people going to think of me? Or, oh, but what if I fail? Or what if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not worthy enough to start my own podcast? What if no one really gives a shit about what I want to say? And in going through this difficult time, I allow myself to just let go of all those narratives telling myself that I couldn't or that I shouldn't, and I went for it. I decided to take the risk because honestly, I was like, what do I have to lose? I'm honestly already like at a bit of a low point. Why not take a risk? It's kind of the perfect time. Why not go for something that I've always wanted to and really lean into being my authentic self? So because I was at a place where I didn't have a lot I was excited about in life, I didn't really feel truly aligned or confident or really know what I wanted to do or who I was at my core, I said, screw it. And I went for it. I let go of all the reasons not to, and I took a risk. I think that there was a reason I was at that low point. That low point was guiding me towards this journey that I am now on. And if it weren't for that low point, I might never have gotten the courage to finally start. It was because of that difficult period. It was because of those difficult feelings and my not feeling very happy at that moment that I was encouraged to make a change. I said, this isn't how I want to live the rest of my life. So I took a leap to make things better, to switch things up, to really put myself out there and to lean into being authentic with myself. And it ripped a lot of band-aids. I had to push through a lot of uncomfortable feelings of not caring what other people think and learning how to be authentic and not just fit the mold and talk about things that are a bit too vulnerable for people at times. But it was what I felt called to do. And it's what truly started pulling me out of that low point because I finally started walking down a path that felt aligned with me. But again, if it weren't for that really difficult time, if it weren't for that low point and the difficult emotions, I might never have found the courage to do so. So similarly, if we go back a little bit more in time, senior year of college, I was really unhappy. I was really struggling with my mental health. I felt disconnected from a lot of my friends in college. I was ultimately just ready to leave the college lifestyle and was stuck there a whole nother year. I was just feeling a lot of anxiety, not feeling very happy. And then of course, 2020 came around, which as you all know, was the COVID pandemic. So we were all forced into isolation and everything just basically multiplied by 10. Whatever I was feeling and experiencing got way worse. So life was really hard during that time. As we all know, I don't need to get into that. But during that time, I was introduced to self-help. I started down this growth journey. I got really into into podcasts, really into reading these books. It opened my eyes and my mind to perspectives and deeper questions and self-discovery that I've never been exposed to before, and that truly lit this spark within me. It became such a passion of mine, and I started living life with this perspective that every single experience in life is here for us to grow through. We have the choice to become a better person through everything that we do. I ultimately just dove into this world of wellness and well-being and spirituality, and it led me into this new world where I found this newfound perspective and inspiration for life. And that's led me to the mission I'm on now. Again, the title of my podcast is Unfulfilled, obviously all about growth and self-improvement and talking about the real things in life. And if it weren't for this phase, that phase back in 2020 that truly kickstarted my passion about well-being and wellness and self-improvement, I might not be doing exactly what I'm doing now. It wouldn't have led me to writing a blog for a year, and that wouldn't have led me to starting the podcast. So again, similar trend, but often it takes those really low points, those points where you don't know who you are, you don't like the life you're living, to bring about opportunities, insights, and perspectives that we need to guide us along the path that we're meant to walk down. And now doing what I'm doing, I feel so connected and aligned, and I've never felt like more of my authentic self than in this phase of life right now, finally finding the courage to do what I want to do. So beyond this point that the hard times encourage you to incorporate those changes, to tune inward and ask the real questions of who you are, what do you want to do in this life? They also allow us to grow the most. Think about the times in your life that were truly the hardest. Those times that you genuinely wanted to fast forward, to entirely skip over. They sucked. Think about that time. Now think about the person you were before that time versus who you are now after the fact. I would bet that person is entirely different, that they've transformed through that experience in a lot of ways. This difficult experience, that shakeup, when you feel like your life is falling apart, these are the times that give us the growth that we need. And we might not even realize that we needed that growth. Often it comes when we don't want it, right? It comes at a time when we're like, things were so good, what's happened? But it's because we need to grow or change in some way. If we aren't growing and evolving, then we're staying stagnant. Then we're living the same life day in and day out. And there's no nuance. There's no change. There's no challenges to work through and to grow through. And that's a pretty boring, mundane life. And that's not the life we're meant to be living. So in my own low moments and hard transitions, I always feel inspired to tune back inwards, to check back in with myself and come back to all the practices and all the tools that I know get me back on track. So instead of seeing it as an obstacle or an inconvenience or a red light, maybe this difficult feeling, this hard time that you're experiencing is just a sign to slow down, to tune back in with yourself, and to come back to those growth practices that maybe you strayed from a little bit. Maybe you need to step back into that meditation, that journal practice, spending more time by yourself, asking what you truly want from this life, asking, is this relationship or career serving me? Asking, is this aligned with who I am and what I want from life? Maybe you needed this difficult transition to force yourself to kind of come back to these practices, to come back to the things that you know are going to help you grow. Because think about it. If you're 100% happy all the time, every single day you wake up and only feel positive feelings, you're constantly stimulated, excited, life is perfect and beautiful all the time, you're never going to feel encouraged to come back to the things that you know keep you on track, to those daily practices that you know keep you in the best headspace, and the best physical health, and the best mental health. Sometimes we need to feel at our lower points to get us back on track, to say, oh yeah, I've stepped away from that thing that I know really serves me, or oh yeah, I could really incorporate more of that in life. I think that could really help me during this time. Just slowing down and asking ourselves, what do we need? I believe that these hard times, they're wake-up calls to come back to ourselves, to realign us on the path that we're actually meant to walk down, maybe rather than the one that we previously were walking down. They bring about this sense of growth and evolution that we may not even have known that we needed previously, but they always end up adding so much fulfillment to our lives. And finally, in navigating through these hard times, and again, this could be a bad day, a bad week, or maybe months or a year, it's less about the time period and more about the difficult feelings that you're experiencing. In navigating through that, we always become more resilient and more confident. Once we make it through to the other side of whatever it is we're going through, we feel so proud of ourselves. We feel good about the resiliency that we had to push through whatever it is that we had to navigate through. We feel good about who we continue to show up as despite what we were feeling. Like, okay, I still made it through that work day even though I was feeling horrible today. Or like, wow, I still really showed up as a good friend despite all that I had going on. Our confidence and resiliency increases because we're providing ourselves with evidence that we can make it through this, that okay, I made it through that hard time. Like, bring on whatever's next. So next time something else comes along that is going to be maybe another difficult transition or not a great day, you know you can make it through because you have just another layer of added evidence that you are capable of making it through these things. One thing I want to share that I absolutely loved, the subway conductor on the train just the other morning on the way to work said, he announced this to the entire train, by the way. Just remember that there's light at the end of this darkness. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Keep your head up high and walk around as such. I thought that was so beautiful and inspiring, and I smiled hearing it, and I know a lot of people needed to hear it. And this is a wonderful final reminder in navigating through these hard times that they always pass. There is always light at the end of the darkness, at the end of this tunnel that you're going through. And afterwards, once you do make it to the end of that tunnel, life is always brighter. Don't you ever feel at the end of a bad day or at the end of a really difficult time when you start to come out of it, you have this newfound perspective and strength and just view on life, honestly, where things just feel a little bit brighter. It's like you needed to go through that to gain something and now has added this brighter color to your life, if you will. But if it weren't for that temporary darkness, that tunnel that you were going through, you might not have come out with that newfound perspective and that strength. It was there for a reason, and it makes the good times even better. It makes your life after the fact a little bit better because of how you grew through that experience. So as we wrap up, again, this is a great episode to save whenever you're navigating those difficult experiences, whether it be a bad day, whether it be a tough year, a tough month, whatever it is you are feeling and going through. Remember, your feelings are valid, but know that it always passes. And know that whatever it is you're feeling and experiencing is here for a reason to help you grow. It's always going to make you stronger, more resilient, more confident. Not to say that you have to see that in this moment right now, but allow this episode to help you zoom out just a little bit to gain that perspective, to know that during this time, you're being molded into the person that is more authentic to you. You're being guided down the path that is more aligned with who you are. As uncomfortable and difficult as it might be, know that you are not alone through that, and know that it's here for a reason. It's not just an inconvenience. It's a necessary part of this life. So no matter how overwhelming it might feel in this moment, know that this passes, know that it's not who you are, and continue to get curious and grow through this experience. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Again, if you have a friend who needs to hear this message, family member going through something, send them this episode. Save it as a reminder for whenever you need it. Thank you for showing up for yourself today, and I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to becoming more fulfilled.